Hello. I didn't I didn't I didn't mind that I had the the mute active. Mm, okay. Um Welcome to this transmission. I'm sorry for being late. But I'm glad that you are here. Today we are going to do some examples with exceptions, and it's going to be a quick one. It's not that the topic is a quick one, but I'm going to split this into two different streamings. So let's begin with this. Uh, the last transmission we had an example where we were parsing variables and we had a string variable with something, an integer, floating, another value, and after that we parse it to a certain data type. So this situation is useful, but then you will have situations where you don't have the value, the correct value, and you didn't test it. So maybe you are handling integers and you are asking for a number, and the user just write up, hey, instead of an integer, he writes 5.1 or 5.77. So the big issue here is that we have to control all that special situations, and we are not able to test it all the cases because it's a hard a hard way to do that. So a single way to do it to control that situation is a try and parse, and try parse is going to return a true if the value is able to be converted, and if it's going to return a false if that value is not able to be parsed to that type of value, to that type of variable. Now here we have a special notation that this means out. Basically, this means I'm sending this integer, and if you change it into the the method where you are using this one, you are going to return me by reference the value of that variable. Basically, this means that we are passing this variable as a by reference, because the reference is not going to be lost. When you originally when a method uses a variable, that variable is being used only by value, not by reference. And by value it means that you have a copy of that variable on some part of the memory, and that part is the one that is going to be used into the function. So if into the function you do several things, uh, you add something to the value or remove something to the value and then change it, then when you get back your result from this method, this is going to it change the variable, but you won't see it because you pass the variable by value, not by reference. This out means that you are going to pass this value this variable by reference, and this reference means that the integer variable is going to hold the new value that you have provided. So um, for this, we have the situation with the console red line, and you are able to handle this. But what happens if you just set up the parse and you just want to keep receiving that value? Well, I'm going to comment all of this. Well, I remember you that uh, okay, I'm commenting this, and now I'm doing something like this. I know that we have been doing some examples previously, So I'm going to do this. I'm going to place this, and now this is going to be place example of exceptions. Okay, now for this example, I'm going to console write line. I'm going to control the errors on the application. Okay, now we have the same. I'm going to control give me an integer. So this is going to be a great line. Now, how I'm able to get some values from the console? I know that we have done several examples, but we have not given any input to this project. So for this case, we are going to see console dot read line. So this is going to wait. This is going to receive something from the keyboard on your console, and you have to press enter. And this one is going to be red. But after this is red, we need to get it into a variable. Readline um, value provided. Okay, we have this value provided. Now we are going to do, this is the basic example. Try and catch. Visual Studio Code has several snippets, so you can have this one. This is try catch, or you are able to use try catch finally, or try finally. I thought it would be try catch. Try catch, and then it just write up the whole code. Um, for this case, now we have value provided. Now int, I have an integer with a number equals int 32 int int 32 dot parse, and I'm going to parse that value provided. Okay, now here I'm just going to write up console write line, the value that you provided is not a number. Okay, we know this is the generic exception, that the base of all the exceptions. So here we know that something happened. We don't know exactly what, but something happened. So the value that you provided is not a number. I'm going to let exercises exam 05. Okay, clear screen, and now I'm going to execute it. You will see .NET run. Now, for this case, we are going to have the following. This taking its time. Okay, we have the execution. I'm going to control the errors on the application, give me an integer, and you are able to write up here. Okay, so I'm going to use 5, and that's it. It doesn't do anything because I didn't place any code if this number is an integer. So just give me a second. I'm going to add it console.writeLine. Um, Thanks for sharing the number. Um, $sign the number. I'm a number. Okay. Okay. .NET run. Okay. Give me an integer 5. Thanks for sharing the number 5. Okay. Now what happens? Mhm. You are able to just write up this thing, this without the exception. So we are going to see that run. It's just not going to have information of anything. For example, Diego. Mhm. The value that you provided it's not a number. Okay. Now we are able to change the way of how this is handled because the information of everything is being is something that you can catch here. You write up the parentheses, and into this parentheses you write exception, genetic exception. Okay, and now what we are going to do, we have this genetic exception so that now we are able to write more information about this error because this object has the error information or the exception information, and you're able to do something like this. Exception catch, and I write up generic exception dot get type. So you got the type for this one, and then error message is generic exception dot message. Mhm. Now we have this clear screen .NET run. Now we are going to validate that this is still working for, and it's working on .NET run. Now I'm going to use the number, well, not the number, the letter T. The value that you provided is not a number. Exception catch, system format exception. Error message, input string was not in the correct format. A similar message that I grow up here, but in a different way, more specific way. So what's going on? We have here the exception was catch is a format exception. I told you that this is the base of all exceptions. So somebody else grew up a class with the name format exceptions. And this format exception happens when you are trying to parse something or to use something in a certain value, but the value is not in the correct way. So a t is not able to be parsed to a number because we have a t, we don't have a number, we don't have an integer. So in this case, the exception says input string was not in a correct format because this format or the content that it has is not a number, is a letter. So this is useful And this is a way that you are able to say, ah, okay, you provided something. You just don't have the try and parse situation where you know that this value is not in the correct way and the try parse returns a false because you want to know, okay, what happened, why this input that I'm receiving is not in the correct way or is not able to be parsed. So there are some situations, and maybe you are thinking, why would you use an exception if you have try parse? Because there are some situations where you need to know what's happening on the application and what error do you have. And there are another situations where you don't have to mind if the value that they provided is wrong. In what way is wrong? You are able to just say, okay, the thing that you sent me is wrong, please verify it. But for some other cases where you have several inputs, several values, and maybe you are providing a web form with 20 or 70 values, and then you get any kind of error, and that error says, okay, I know that I have an error, but what type of error is this? And not all the time it's okay to say to the client, hey, you have an error, correct it. Okay, maybe sometimes it's better if you say, okay, you have an error of format, the value that you are sending is not in the correct way, or you have an error of I don't know what else, uh, limits, boundaries, the value that you provided is higher than the value that you are able to handle, or the object that you are trying to convert is not the one, it doesn't have a value or it doesn't have a correct format or something like that. Okay, so for these cases, it's better to use this, the try and catch, and handling the exception. So, but what happens? What happens if .NET run? If instead of providing a T, I'm providing a number. So I have 25. Oh, 3,444. Thanks for sharing the number. Okay. But what happens if somebody shares a big number, says, hey, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have this. I have this guy. Enter. We have provided a number and it doesn't matter. We got an exception. What's the situation here? And we provided an integer number. What's happening here? The value that you provided is not a number. Okay. But why? Okay, exception catch. Overflow exception. Error message. Value was either too large or too small for an integer, 32 bits. This is the main part. Okay, we have a way to control the errors and we are able to handle uh, any type of error, any type of exceptions. And now we are receiving an overflow instead of incorrect format. .NET run, provide a value, t. The value that you provided is not a number. System format exception against system.overflow exception. Okay, so what are we going to do um, to change this way? Okay, the exceptions are sorted. The catch of exceptions must be sorted from most specific to most generic. It means that if you are handling more than one type of exception, you have to use the most specific one at the top and the less specific, the more generic one at the bottom. So I'm going to do this catch. You are able to use another catch. This is the way of how the application knows there are several exceptions being handled. And I'm going to use this one, format exception. And catch format exception. You are able to use the name that you want. Format exception, FETE, anything. Format exception. For this one, I'm going to use this. Now, I'm going to write up console, write line, the value that you provided is not a number. Verify the information is correct. Okay. The value that you provided is wrong. Okay. So now what we are going to do this here, clear screen, .NET run. We are going to write up a 5. Oh, semicolon. Okay, clear screen, .NET run. I'm going to, okay, variable format exception. Okay, it's okay. I'm going to control the errors of the application. Give me an integer. Okay, and the integer is t. The value that you provided is not a number. Verify the information is correct. We are able to write this because we know that the format is wrong, because we have a format exception. And this information is going to be useful to continue or to resend our user back to, to this part. And on the other hand, .NET Run, I'm going to write up again the long number. This is a very big number. Okay, the value that you provided is wrong. Exception cache overflow exception message is the value was either too large or too small. Okay, well, we have that. And now I have leave an existing catch block. I'm going to, we are using both. This warning that I have here is because I'm not using this value. If I just delete this knows this way the catch knows that it's going to catch any format exception received, and then this is the code that is going to happen. If I use this way, it means that it catches a format exception and its value it's being kept in this variable. So this variable is the one that we are able to use to retrieve the information about, okay, what type of error is, what is the message, and other things specifically for a format exception. So you are able just to do this, and this warning from above is going to be deleted. .NET, .NET run. Ah, .NET run. I misspelled run. I grow wrong. Give me an integer, okay? You don't have this warning. This warning is no longer here. Give me an integer 55. Thanks for sharing the number 55. Okay, now we are going to see that we have the overflow control, we have the format, but we want to verify this because an overflow is able to say, okay, that value is not correct, but you are able to provide from this to this value. So the main error says the value was either too large or too small for an integer. So I'm going to do this. It doesn't matter. There are no hierarchy for the overflow exception and the format exceptions. Both are at the same level. overflow exception. So you are able to use this. It's not more generic one or another. Both are the same. Then console write line. You provided a value too large or too small. You are able to use, and then we can provide the mean value and the max value from int mean value. I don't remember how to write that. Int dot mean value. I don't remember. I'm going to place this in mean value up to max value. Let run. Let run. I'm going to control the errors of the application. Now I have, give me an integer, a very big one. Okay, you provided a value too large or too small. You are able to use from less to millions. And remember, we are able to use the format and clear screen. Now, this is going to be more legible. We have this big number. Yep. Less 2000, 2 billions up to 2 billions. So we got it. We got the way to control that. And we have different errors, different messages for different type of errors. An overflow exception, a format exception, and an exception. Now, I told you that you have to write up for just give me a second. We are able to do this, catch the exception. I told you in the beginning that you have to use the more specific at the top and the more generic at the bottom. Okay, what happens if I don't do it in this way? If I change the order to this? Well, let's figure out and you will see that it doesn't work as you think. .NET run. Okay, it throws an error. A clause catch previously detects all the exceptions of this type or another superior type exception. This means this is returned both here and here because we have the format exception and the overflow exception. If I change it to this, .NET run. Okay, the compiler is not going to let you go because you have a situation where you are using some information in the right way. Hey, thanks for following. Gaurav Rawal, thank you. So that this is the situation. The compiler is not going to enable your code to run because you have something here that is handling the more generic exceptions, and then you have some specific exceptions. So this is how this is happening. We have to change it so that instead of this, we have this, and this corrects the situation. And maybe, and with this, .NET run, and with this, you will answer the question that maybe you had in your mind. Okay, if, what happens if I have a number that, if I have 20 or 30 exceptions and I don't know which one is more generic than other or more specific than another, how I will set them up in the right order? Well, because we have this error, and this error is going to let you know that you have something that is not handled in the right way. Okay, this is going to be everything for the transmission of today. um, I'll see you next week. And I'm glad that you are joining, that you are liking this streaming. In the chat, let me know what else do you want to learn? What else do you want to do you want a real life example? And then we are going to moving forward. Right now, my target is that in the future we are going to be able to handle microservices, to handle to release applications on Azure, but we need time and we need to review some basic topics in order to move forward to the advanced topics. Okay, so see you later and have a nice day.